everybody. Welcome to the Ramblings of Designer podcast. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about the latest in graphic design news from around the web. My name is Adam. I'm a freelance designer from the San Francisco Bay Area. I specialize in visual, UI design with a little bit of illustration. I like to give companies character. And every week I'm joined by my co-host, Terry. How's it going, Terry?
Hey, it's going good. As Adam says, my name is Terry. I'm a UX UI designer from the Bay Area. I help bridge the gap between products and their end users. Back to you, Adam.
Now, this is a very different type of podcast than we usually do. Instead of news this week, we actually have a guest. So in one of my previous articles that I talked about, the article was called Human Error, an Important Ingredient in Great Designs. And that was written by Emanuel Serbanoiu. That was close. Darn it. And so Terry actually decided to reach out. And you know what? We got him. And so
he's here live right now. Awesome.
So he's talking to us all the way from Romania. And so, hi, Emanuel, if you want, you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm Emanuel. Indeed, I'm talking to you from Romania, the sunny Bucharest right now. It's like 1,000 degrees outside and I'm sweating already, even though it's like 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, so we decided to reach out and we said, you know what, we're just gonna do an interview episode today. So Terry, why don't you take over?
Okay, well, as we always like to start with, so Emanuel, how is your week going?
My week was actually really good. I mean, everything went smoothly. We had a lot of fun this week because me personally, I'm working on a new feature for Fitbit. And I really did exactly what I love this week. It sounds so like a cop out answers, but this is exactly what I did. So my week went really smooth.
Okay, great. Well, maybe you might not have an answer for this one because since you had a fabulous week, do you have any gripes about your week or any complaints or something that maybe kind of bugged you a little bit or you can change?
I actually do. So I worked on some old files actually, and I found a mess in the file system of that file. It was like all over the place, no file names, no layer names, no pages names, no nothing.
Are you talking about, did you open one of my files? Because that's
I was just going to say that, Amal. Yeah, you might got one of mine.
What were you working in?
In Sketch. We primarily use Sketch. I would love to use Figma now and again, but Sketch is the way to go right now.
Nice. Okay, well, let's just get this started. So, Emanuel, how did you get started in the industry?
It's kind of a funny story because it all happened like 1,000 years ago when I was in high school. I'm not that old, but for me it seems that way. Long story short, I didn't have a great computer and it didn't run any games. So instead of games, I installed Photoshop. And, that was the beginning. I joined some forum groups here in Romania and international forums. And people usually had those little, I don't know how to call them in a nice way, but there were pretty avatars and forum signatures. And I was like, I can do a better job. And I installed Photoshop, and then I began doing some experiments with type and with color and with blending options in Photoshop, of course. And I kind of became like a graphic designer at first, I think. And from there, everything spiraled up.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Within your background, you said you have a computer science background.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy though, because For example, in Romania, we don't really have product design universities, and this was pretty much the next best thing. Yeah. And I had to join something that was related to design. And when I was signing up for this university, I saw that they had courses like 3D rendering, 3D modeling, I think, multimedia, graphic design or something like that, web design. I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. I should join these guys. So I did, and I end up being a programmer in the end, I guess it's called. I don't know,
Yeah,
those weird creatures
yeah.
who programs.
Do you still do a little programming now, or basically it's just strictly design?
I actually do. It's not really programming, it's more like coding, because even last week I did something in JavaScript with a 3D pseudo engine library, and I actually made an illustration with code. It's kind of funny. I had it on CodePen for a while. I think I deleted it, but if I didn't, maybe I can link you to it. It's
Yeah,
a
absolutely. We
Super
can.
Nintendo controller.
Yeah, awesome. We can actually put that in our show notes.
Mhm.
You're flattering me.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. It sounds like you that you had a well verse of where you started and where you ended. So this is kind of a curveball here. But where do you see
Mhm.
yourself maybe 3 years from now, or maybe 5 years from now? So what are your goals for like right now? So what do you want to learn more?
Yeah, my goals for right now is to keep being a designer. I really want to learn more about motion design. I think this is one of my passions right now. I don't know how to call it. I don't know if it's a passion, but more of a thing that interests me. And also, I want to delve even deeper in product design. But in 5 years, I think, hmm, I don't want to jinx it, but maybe a project manager.
Okay,
Pro,
well, hey,
pro,
if you don't want to say it, you don't have to say it.
no, no,
That's totally
it's fine.
all
It's
right.
fine.
Okay,
I
cool.
also noticed in your portfolios you were dabbing a little bit into 3D. Was that something that you're still interested in, or did you abandon it? Like I did.
Um, Almost abandoned it. I mean, I really like modeling, and I think 3D is like a thing that should interest more uh, in designers more in general, because it takes you in uncharted waters with vertices and edges and loops and everything. Um, Currently, I want to continue doing something with 3D, but I'm not sure what, because it doesn't really intersect that much with our um, how do you call it,
Current.
with our domain. Yeah, I think 3D is more for, like, I don't know, graphic. How do you call that? Effects, special effects,
Mm.
Yeah, special
and
effects.
See,
commercials.
that's one of the things that like me and Terry talk about all the time. Where like we're trying to level up and we're trying to get better in all different facets, but then like we never use what we're learning, and then so it's kind of hard to stick, for it to stick and for us to keep at it, because like wow, I'm never gonna use that 3D thing. I've never used it for anything, so it slowly starts going away. Oh well.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, it just changes in like where you start and where you ended, and that leads into our next question. So for you, Emmanuel, so what UX information that you need before you even start designing?
I
If you
think
need information, or maybe you don't.
I actually need some information. I think the most important things are the goals. What are we trying to achieve? And
Hmm.
who are we doing these things for? Because I'm not sure how you should design a thing if you don't have these answers to these questions. It's kind of a tricky thing, you know? That's it.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so from your being in the industry, what is your design process? And also too, if you can describe your process and maybe some other processes that or design methods that you follow, maybe that you heard of, or if you've gone to a workshop. Yeah, absolutely.
I found that each project has like a different story and timeline, and it requires like a specific process, even though you have like your general process that you can use for almost every problem. Usually you have to tweak it in some way, and my current process right now, it looks something like this. Let me think about it exactly. I might skip some steps, but this is it. First, I usually do a kickoff with my team to find out answers to those previously mentioned questions, and also some other ones, because we need to find out about the market and about the business and about, I don't know, users' preferences, and how will we continue, and so on. So this is one of the most important things, I think, the beginning. There is actually a Chinese proverb, maybe, by Confucius. It doesn't matter. He said it. The first step is as important as the last 9 in a 10-step journey. So I think, yeah, this kickoff is really important. And then I do a brainstorming session, where I try to spew out everything I can think about the problem at hand. Of course, I forgot to mention that in the kickoff, we try to also define our problem. And I'm a big fan of templates. In that one book called, how does it? It's called Clean UX. You can find a lot of templates for problem definition and proto personas and everything. And because of that, I'm a big fan of templates. Yeah, and then next step is, as I said, brainstorming, and just going back and forth between things because it's morning. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's everybody has different processes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's always good to hear of like how other people think and
Yeah, I couldn't hear you just a second ago. It interrupted, but I hope, Adam, you can sniff this out. Yeah, and after brainstorming, usually I do like maybe a customer journey map, depending if it's a new problem or an existing problem, or a user flow. That's the thing I think is really important for me in my design process. And then maybe a few steps after that, I create some wireframes, and I really try to involve everyone possible, like the engineering and the product, and I don't know, maybe marketing sometimes, and even sales, depending on what kind of thing I'm working on. And after wireframes, I think, yeah, mostly I think I jump into some UI design, and straight after the UI, I jump into prototyping. I think a high level view of my process is something like this, just described.
Awesome. Yeah, that's pretty involved. So let's see. I would say, where do you think you get your inspiration from? Like, how do you stay current? What do you read up on?
Yeah, so I get my inspiration from all kinds of disciplines and domains and industries. For example, the music industry really influences me. Why? Yeah. Uh, I think, for example, people have a different opinion, but I kind of like not Willow, his brother, Jaden Smith.
Oh,
I think,
really?
like, yeah, he's a creative guy and everything. Yeah. And I really admire some more senior designers. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's at Google. His first name is Luke. I think the last name is Roblewski, if I'm not mistaken. He's really awesome. I think everybody should follow him on Twitter and everything. And I'm also inspired by a lot of graphic design work. I think even though I'm not a graphic designer no more, I think graphic designer work is really inspiring with all the colors and type and layout manipulations and everything.
Yeah, awesome. I don't know who that person was from Google, but link me into that, and I'll put him in the show notes as well.
For sure.
Let's see. All right, and then I guess to close out, or the big question I guess we want to know is, let's say you're a new designer. Let's say you were in print, you're doing visual design. Let's say you want to get into UX or maybe do what you're doing. Do you have any advice, for those designers that are thinking about getting into the industry, or what advice can you?
Yeah, my advice is read a lot and practice a lot. I think those are the most important things you can do as a young designer or a freshly starting designer. Books like even Sprint. I have a book now called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, and the book called Designing with the Mind in Mind. I think those are really important things that you can do, reading and then practicing what you just read. Those make a difference always.
Awesome. Terry, do you have any more questions? I have a few, but unless you have other ones.
No, actually, I do have a couple questions, but I'll let you go because since you've already started.
Well, those were our big ones. The main ones I kind of want to talk about are a little bit from your website. So I'm playing Confucius here for a second, and I'm gonna guess. Does your birthday fall on the 15th?
Yes.
Ah, there you go. Because on your site you mentioned that your favorite number is 15. Is there another reason why it's 15?
Yeah, my first job was on the 15.
Oh, awesome.
My car was bought. My first car was bought on the 15 and had a 15 at the license plate.
Whoa.
Yeah, there are a lot of coincidences, I think. Yeah, but mostly that.
Well, you know what, Emanuel? Maybe you can give us winning lotto numbers over here. So Adam and I, we can win the California lotto.
It's just going to be 15, 15, 15, 15.
Lucky all five, 15,
winning number 15.
05. No.
All right. Stuff. Go ahead, Terry. Your turn.
Yeah. Regarding going back with like the biggest trends and and when you work with collaborations with your team, so what's your opinion about having psychology to make UX decisions? Do you think that's a big part of it or not a part of it, or
having what? I could not hear. Can you repeat the question, please?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. So going back within like the process or like of the trends, I just wanted to hear from your background and your opinion. So whenever a user makes a decision on some sort, do you think psychology plays a big part of it in some realm?
Yeah, I think design is mostly psychology, in my opinion. And also psychology is biology. And people really like that phrase, everything psychological is biological. So maybe design is influenced by our biology because, for example, we have the most advanced eyeball in the animal range. It's except birds of prey, of course, but we can see the furthest, and our colors, we perceive the most colors, and the smallest, how do you call it, changes in our environment. And I think most of our designs are influenced about the way we see things. But also, we have a lot of psychological reasons, and we should design in terms of how we think. Because, for example, you know that one thing, I forgot exactly how it's called, about choosing when you have like 60 different types of jam, and when you display those 60 types of jam to some people and ask them to choose one, they have a hard time because there are so many and they can't figure out which one to choose. But if you just give them like 5 types of jam, it's way easier and people buy more jam. So
And
definitely,
jam is yummy.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I just had one more question regarding of your article
Mhm.
that you wrote, Human Error, an Important Ingredient in Great Design.
Mhm.
And this is for our listeners. If this is the first time you guys are hearing about this, read it. It will make you open your eyes. But I
Mhm.
thought this was really, really clever. It's like slips. So when the intention and the act don't match. So you have two phrases here: action-based slips, and then you have memory lapse slips. Can you go into a little more detail about that? Where did you come up with the phrase, or did you read it in a book? It's just like that was just like very like in your face, easy to digest, right?
Yeah, so read about, so I read a lot of books, and one thing I saw reoccurring in every book is errors, and nobody really talks about errors when talking about design. And I was like, maybe people should know about errors and they should read about errors. And I tried to uh, squeeze everything in an article. And my main inspo for this article was actually the book called Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. He has a quite an extensive article, chapter in that book about errors, and there is where I saw slips, because I never knew what slips were until this book, and I always wondered about why we're doing things that we don't really want, and why those are errors. And I found that answer there. About the phrasing, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I came up with it. I think it was like, what example should I do here? And that's how I came up with that.
Nice, nice, nice. Excuse me. Yeah. Overall, that's all the questions I have. Unless you have questions for us, maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I have a question. What do you like most about doing these episodes? Because I really enjoy them.
Adam, I'll let you answer first.
Yeah. Well, so for me, the whole idea of the podcast, right, is we wanted or for me personally, I wanted to become a better speaker. And so, if I'm forced to speak about design on a consistent basis, maybe that'll work. Helping me talk to clients, helping me in interviews, helping me just be more comfortable, and then having to research all these articles that we talk about also helps me become a more educated designer. Now, because of this, because I have to know what I'm talking about, I have to study up more and read more articles. And so I'm having to read. It's actually a curse I gave upon myself, right? Because I have to read like your article, and then I have to read just more about the things you talked about, just to make sure that I kind of get the concept right. Like you mentioned Alexander Pope, and I'm like, oh great, do I know who that is? Now I got to research a little bit of Alexander Pope, and then it just sends me into this spiral loop of of design. But that's sort of like the main reasons why I started it.
That's a very noble goal. I think that's really amazing. I mean, I wish I had something like that in my life to help me grow and learn and be a better speaker. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And then this, I think, is the beginning of the next step, right? So now, not only are we reading about these articles that are written by the designers, but why don't we talk to these designers as well? And so now we get to meet you and hear about your story and your inspirations, and we could learn from you and how you got your ideas, and and so hopefully this is just the beginning of an expansion of this whole of this podcast.
Yeah, just our Limby, because basically the first year that basically we started, it was just Adam and I, and we just had a certain heard about articles, and same thing with Adam is like, okay, I need to become a better speaker. I need to be what's up in the trends and learn, and by doing this podcast on every single week, no matter we're sick or family, whatever, we did it for a year, every single week. So for me that's just being accountable of learning stuff, doing this, doing that. Say, hey, I'm taking this coding class. Yeah, I suck at it, but it took me 1 month just to do one homework assignment, but still that keeps me accountable. So that's why I do it and stuff like that. And besides, it's fun to read different articles, and that's how with this article I read, it's like, oh my God. And actually your article came at a really good time because I was doing a project about errors. So when that came up, it's like, oh my God, yeah, it was. So thank you. It did help clear some stuff up in a way.
That's amazing to hear. I'm really glad I got the chance to help you in maybe some minor way. Really happy to hear that. And I just wanted to say I'm a big fan of discipline and accountability, and I think more of us should embrace that, even in the design field. I think those things alone will make us better designers because we'll be able to achieve more, and usually that's related to conscientiousness, and that's a predictor of success. And I really appreciate that about you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been, as like Adam said, so now, we've got to meet you, we've got to experience what your knowledge is and stuff, maybe, 3 months from now, it's like, hey, let's, talk to Emanuel. We have Emanuel. We have another special guest. So, it's a working relationship, just a back and forth, and say, hey, have you seen this article, or have you seen this? But also too, one question that Adam and I always ask each other. So what channels are you on that basically, if somebody is listening to their podcast and they want to reach out to you, so how would they do that?
So if you want to reach me, maybe the LinkedIn profile is the best way to do that. I'm also on Dribbble from time to time, and I know they have like a hire me button or a message button right there. I don't really use Twitter because I think I'm really late to the game. I sometimes use Facebook, but that's more like for friends, because here in Romania we're like 50 years into the past and people didn't get over Facebook, and you know how it is. But yeah, I think LinkedIn maybe.
Okay, so LinkedIn, or well, how the way I got to you is I looked up your name, your website came on, and then I contact you through email. So that's another way too.
Yeah, email is another way. I'm usually I'm checking my email quite often, so I'm quick to reply. That's a good way. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Anything else that you want to share with anybody, or any insights, or last? We always like to say last words, or like last expression of, like, if there was one advice you can give to anybody, I mean, designer, non-designer, just people in general. So what was the best advice somebody gave you?
I have some advice. It didn't really came from somebody, but I figured it out from another podcast actually. And
Nice.
it is to really be friendly to people and try to make friends, especially at the workplace, because having social connections might be the most important thing a person can have. Um, money is not that important, or what you're working on is not that important, but it's really important to have amazing friendships and amazing people around you that inspire you and allow you to grow and behave the way you want to behave and become who you want to be. And yeah, be more friendly. Try to make friends. Make this an objective of your career. Make friends in the industry. Make friends around yourself. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. So Adam, any more questions?
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay, so how we normally end this. So Adam, so where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, even though I don't use it either. But I post our podcast whenever we post our new ones. You can find it there. You can find me. That's Adan, ADANZEPEDA. What about you, Terry?
Yeah, definitely Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. My handle name is Flaxeny, FLAXENINK, and I'm still thinking of doing an Instagram page, but I'm still haven't thought about that yet all the way through, but we'll see. Still thinking about it.
All right. So that's it for us. Thank you, Emanuel, for coming on the podcast and being our guinea pig, if you will, for having our first interview podcast. And that's it.
Exciting. All right, everybody. Aloha.
Bye.
Bye.